This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My amazing co-host today is C.R. Rice, and our guest today is the amazing Judy Stanigar. Woo! Woo! Okay. Woo! Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking. Guess what I'm drinking today? So I have my sweet apple pie, which is apple brandy with spices and natural flavor from our sponsor, Skunk Brothers Spirits. So if you go to skunkbrotherspirits.com, type in coupon code DWA10, you can get this. It's sweet apple pie. It's kind of amazing. And I'm just having it over rocks by itself like a boss. That's what bosses do. Anyway, CR, what are you drinking today?
I am sticking to my green tea and vodka. The fancy name we came up with it because we keep demanding one is Corey thinks we should make a weird drink for all of the four horsemen. So we're going to go opposite. So we're going to call this one pestilence because it's healthy. So instead of being like something toxic, we're going to go with that.
I like it. Pestilence. I enjoy it. Okay, Judy, what are you drinking?
Okay, so first I'll tell you, I was going to drink something Greek because we're getting ready next September to go to Greece and we're just planning a trip, but I couldn't find anything in the house. So I settled to my most favorite country, which is Italy, and I'm having just some Pellegrino and Campari.
Ooh, that's fancy though. That's pretty fancy.
No, just a fancy glass.
I like the fancy glass. Judy, for those that do not know you that are listening into this podcast, what do you write?
Okay, so my last book is a book called Marika's Best Laid Plan, and it's a fiction. It's a fictionalized account of my years working in a methadone clinic in New York City. I'm a therapist who turned to writing late in life.
Oh wow! But that had to have some adventures with it.
Yes. It's quite a ride.
So when did you say late in life? When did you actually first start writing?
Well, I started writing when I was 10 years old. I started keeping a diary and had kept it going for many, many years. And I've written all my life, but it was the sort of writing that you write, and then you put it in a drawer somewhere. And then about 7 years ago, I took a semi-retirement from my profession. I just went into a private practice. So that's when I started taking writing seriously with the idea that maybe I will actually publish it. So about 7 years ago, I started writing. I wrote my first fiction called A Quartet in Love and self-published. And once I got that under my belt, I wrote my second novel and I said, well, this time, let me see if I can get a publisher. And I did. So so it's so far, I've got 2 down and I'm now working on a third thing, which is a memoir. So.
Wow. So what was that like for you going the self-publishing route originally?
It was, it was a little scary, but I have to say that it was easier than I thought. What I didn't think through is I thought, well, it's out there and that's it. And now the public will find it and I will, become an amazing bestseller author, because I didn't do anything as far as marketing. I mean, it was just, I shouldn't have been clueless, because in I call it my previous life. This is my third life. So my first one, I worked in publishing in New York City. For a few years, I worked at Little Brown, which is a pretty large publishing company. And then I decided to went back to school and became a therapist. That's my second life, my major big life. And now my third one is going back to publishing, but the landscape has changed so much in all the years since I've been in it, that I forgot that, you know, when you self-publish, it's not like when a big publishing house puts you out there and they have the marketing and publicity behind you and so on. So I just kind of put it out there and my friends read it and I had fun with it. So, but it was really, I didn't get it professionally edited. It was just, hey, I wrote a novel sort of thing. I should have known better, but you know, it was fun still. It was good.
Well, no, that, I mean, it is a good experience, and depending on what you're trying to get out of it, if you were putting it out there to go, I'm going to be a world famous author, well, maybe you should have approached it slightly differently.
Right.
But that's kind of exciting. So you went from publishing into therapy. How did you end up being in a methadone clinic? That's kind of heavy.
It was. And I want to say, before I tell you this, I want to say that my novel tackles some heavy subjects, but in a lighthearted manner, because I'm all about, if you don't have a sense of humor, you might as well just, you know, end it. So you got to have
That's
humor
true.
in life, especially as a therapist. So, you know, I actually started working in a methadone clinic even before I completed my degree. It was initially it was part of school, my internship, and then I kept my job for a few years. And it was a world that was totally new to me, working with heroin addicts in a methadone clinic. And methadone is very controversial because it's, you know, you're giving addicts a synthetic heroin, basically,
Yeah.
to maintain them. So it's controversial, but it's such an amazing world because the clientele, they're sad and tragic and funny. They're lovable and at the same time exasperating. I fell in love with the clientele. And while I was working there, I thought to myself, one day I'm going to write a book and I'm going to call it Tales of Macedonia. You know, Tales from the Methadone Clinic. And it was in the back of my mind for years, but then, you know, life interferes with your plans. And I was, you know, moving along with my career. We moved a lot. We lived in different cities and states. So it was there, and I just started, when I had time, I started, you know, writing a little bit, but then, as I said, I put it in a drawer. And then a couple of years ago, I said, well, let me see what I can do with this. And that's when I decided to make it into a real novel.
So you went romance, the first book you wrote?
No, the first book I wrote, which is, here, A Quartet in Love, is actually, it's about my college experience. And it's about my situation that occurred to me in college with my boyfriend and my professor friend. And at the same time, I weaved into it a lot of fictionalized characters and so on. So it's basically about a quartet of people all looking for love in all the wrong places and at different stages in life. One is an 18-year-old, my character, it was the 18-year-old freshman, and you know what it's like to have your hormones raging and be 18 and newly in love and so on. And at the same time, what it's like for a couple of the professors who are in midlife, and everybody wants love and everybody wants some sort of renewal and finding, you know, something fresh in their lives. But they're all at it, you know, finding it in all the wrong places. So it's kind of a funny story, but I think it resonates for people who at all ages in life, because you know, whether you're 18 or 80, you still want something romantic in life.
That's so true. That's very, very true. So it sounds like all of your books though have like a real life element that you then fictionalized.
Yes, absolutely, because I think that has something to do with first my need to tell a certain story, but also, to be honest, maybe I don't have the imagination to come up. I mean, like, I'm also always awed by people who do sci-fi or fantasy. I mean, coming up with like an amazing original idea. So my ideas are always from a place of my life, but then I am able to take off with it and fictionalize it.
That's very cool. So when you wrote your first book, how long did that take you?
Oh, the first one I'd say took me about almost 3 years between the writing and the rewrite and rewrite. I was, I don't, even the second one took about 2 years because I'm not good at making outlines. So I go on, I let the characters lead me, and then you go on roads that then, mislead you, and then you have to backtrack and that sort of thing. So I do envy people who can really do an outline and stick to it. I know my beginning and I know my end when I start writing. What I don't know is the middle, and I kind of let the characters take me there. But as I say, they don't always take you to the right place. So you have to, at least that's my process.
No, I think every author's process is different. So you started your life, you went into publishing. Why did you leave publishing? Or let's start before that. Why did you go into publishing? What were you trying to be when you grew up, so to speak?
Okay. So I grew up in Israel, and then I moved to this country when I was a teenager, and I always wanted to write. But then I came from a background where writing, my parents were into very old world, and they were Holocaust survivors, and for them, go to college is a must so you can get a good job and have a profession where you get a salary every week, something to hold on to. And so writing was not really considered an option.
No,
So
go ahead, that makes sense. No, totally makes sense. It's
right,
like, that's cute.
profession.
You need to make money though. We appreciate your art.
Right, exactly. But you need to have a profession.
Yeah.
So the next best thing when I got out of college was to work in publishing. If I can't write, at least I can be surrounded by other artists, and writers. So that's why I got into publishing, into working there. But maybe I was a little disillusioned with working there, because you work in publishing because you're so into literature, and I was young, and I was, bedazzled with, working with authors. But, it's not exactly working with literature. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
It was, so after a while, I was feeling that the reason I'm interested in authors and I'm interested in literature is because I'm interested more in the human psyche.
No, that makes sense.
So while I was working there, I started thinking about something else I could do. And I started talking to people, and someone said to me, I think you'd be a good therapist. And I was like, okay, that's an idea. And just opened that door, and I went through it and didn't look back.
Wow, that is quite a journey. And I think sometimes, you go into a career. I always say this when I'm talking to people about choosing a career, whether it's, when they're coming out of school or just any kind of thing, is go actually work in that career, shadow that career, because then you learn that career and then you go, oh, this isn't great. Like I used to work with a lot of high school students and I would hear them go, I want to be a nurse. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So when you're a nurse, it's never when your patients are happy and doing well. Like maybe if you're a nurse in, certain units, but for the most part, patients are doing great if there is a nurse involved. So when you start in nursing and stuff, you're going to have to change bedpans and vomit and all this other fun stuff. And I'm like, maybe you should go shadow for a day and decide if you want to be a nurse. I think nursing is a noble profession. I think it's one of the best professions, but don't go to a bunch of school to then discover what nursing is actually about, right? Like that doesn't
true.
At all.
That's so true what you're saying, because also I think when we're young, I mean, we're asked to choose a profession for life when we're 18, 19. Like we really know. I mean,
I think you should decide what you want to be when you grow up over and over again in this life and do that. I think, and we've met so many writers on this show that are late bloomers. That's what I'll call them. So they've decided later in life to take up writing as a profession, right? Or at least a really strong hobby, if nothing else,
Exactly.
So I think it's really, really cool. Okay. Yeah. So what totally made you finally go, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to make a book and I'm going to publish it. What was the catalyst that finally made you decide to do that?
Oh gosh, we moved to, so one of our last move was from San Francisco to San Diego. And when we moved, I said, you know what? Every time I moved, I brushed up my resume and hustled and went there and got a job. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. I've always wanted to write, and I'm not going to look for a job. I'm going to sit home, let my husband support me, and I'm going to write. And it was as simple as that. I said, you know what?
I like it.
If not now, when? It was one of those moments that, I kept pushing it. And one day I'm going to do this when my life is perfect or this or that. And I said, that's it. It's now or never. It was basically cowardice, to be honest with you. I was afraid to sit home and just write.
Well, how did your husband feel about that when you're like, you know what, I am actually just going to stay here and I'm going to type some words. You go get a paycheck. Thank you. What was that like?
To be honest with you, I mean, I must have done something right in my previous life to have him, because he's always been very supportive and he's always been the one to tell me, Judy, you always told me you wanted to write. So why are you getting a job? Why? And the reason I used to like hustle and get a job is that we moved to a city. I don't know anyone in the city. I don't have kids. So it's a very isolating kind of thing. Without friends, without kids, you sit home and you write and you wait for the moment that your husband comes home to talk to someone. So it was hard. And that's why whenever we moved, I said, well, first thing I'm going to do is go look for a job.
No, that makes sense.
So I like to blame him for my, but actually the buck stops with me. I'm the reason I stopped myself all these years from really writing. I mean, I love my profession as a therapist too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was doing something I hated all these years. Instead of writing, I was doing something I loved.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a true story for authors in all different walks of life and whatever. We're the absolute worst at holding ourselves back. Mm-hmm. Very few people are just writing their hearts out and they're, waiting for something. A lot of times it's not actually doing it, right? It's not actually doing the writing and putting it there.
Exactly.
Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers Spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Okay, we're back.
All right. So my big question is I know you said I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this without it sounding weird. So you like, the sci-fi and things like that. And you said you didn't think that you were capable of coming up with something as creative as that. Have you thought about dabbling into it to see if you could? Or are you just going to stick to doing your life experiences in a fictional twist?
The short answer is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think I'm beyond, I'm beyond learning to do something. To me, it would be too hard. Yeah, it would be too hard to do a sci-fi. And honestly, it's not what I want to do. It's not what I desire to write. So I'm at this stage in life where I'm just going to do and write what I want, just what I want to. It's interesting. I was at the library the other day doing an author interview, and someone asked me, he's a writer in the audience, and he said, well, how do you figure out what's out there in the market and what you should write? Because by the time you finish writing it, the market has moved on from fantasy to something else. And I said, for me, it doesn't work that way. I'm going to write what I want to write. But there's no market, But that's just me right now.
No, I think that's good. I think people who write to market, if that's their thing and they want to do that and they're creative that way, that's great. I think that when it comes to artwork, it's one thing to be commissioned to do something, regardless of what type of art you do. It's one thing to be commissioned and you review, like I use this example for tattoo artists all the time, right? Tattoo artists get paid to do tattoos. That's what they get paid to do. And if you get better and better at it, you are very able to select what kind of tattoos you want to do, because you can go, no, I'm not going to do that butterfly on the wall. My favorite tattoo studios do not have any artwork, like tattoo with, flash is what they call it, where you can go, I want that bee that's in that tattoo flash, right? Mm-hmm. But and so I think those are the best, but it's very interesting because as you start off, you have to sometimes do the bee that's on the flash. But as a writer, you can go, okay, I'm going to do that because that's going to make me money. That's what the tattoo artist is doing. I'm going to do the bee on the flash because that's going to make me money. Or as an artist, you can go, I'm going to write what I like, what I'm passionate about, and find my audience that wants to read what I want to write. And hopefully you can build an audience and it gets bigger and bigger and it's very profitable, but sometimes it's just going to be a little niche audience that loves your stuff, and you have to be doing it because you want to do it. And if you're doing it to make millions of dollars, then you need to go write small town romances and get ghostwriters and have them write 12 of them a year for you and do all the marketing and stuff, because that's a different business than the business of actually writing. Exactly. And to be honest, I'm at this stage of life where I don't need I'm past where I need to make $1 million, it's like. I think that's great. So you have 3 books under your belt now, right?
No, 2. I'm working on the 3rd.
Okay. And what is, so you're working on the 3rd. When is it supposed to come out?
Oh, I don't know, because I'm really, I'm probably only about halfway through it. So I haven't even tried to get to put it out there. So I would say probably another 1.5 years or so. It's a memoir of my childhood in Israel. So again, who knows if there's a market for it, but that's what I'm into right now. So.
No, that's very cool. So let's talk about your process, because so what is your writing process like? What is your setup like?
I'm not where, when you're saying setup, you mean
like, do you like to write in person? Like by yourself, or do you like to write, like go to a coffee shop and write?
Okay.
Like I write in the morning. I only write in the morning, and the sun has to be this way, and I need to have a cup of tea. Like, what is your writing process?
Got it. Okay. So I have to write by myself, and I can't have music. It has to be quiet, and I have to be at the computer. And I'm usually a morning person, but you know, in the past couple of years, I've expanded it. And if I'm out and about in the morning, then I will force myself to get going in the afternoon. Where I used to be, oh, it's past 1 o'clock, I'm not writing. Now I'm more flexible. But I also I have a wonderful group of friends who are writers, and once or twice a week we Zoom in. The wonderful world of Zoom is opened up thanks to COVID, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely changed the landscape. I will say
It
that.
sure has, because these friends are on the East Coast and here I am on the West Coast. And once a week we Zoom in, and we then we spend an hour writing, and then we read pieces of what we've written, and we exchange commentary on it. And it's so motivating and it's so wonderful. And I never thought I'd be able to write when, you know, I'm zooming in and it's like, you know, I thought I needed my space, my quiet, but it works wonderfully. So yeah.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, since you were sort of writing in a vacuum, so to speak, when did you find your tribe?
So, you know, initially it was in a vacuum, absolutely. And then I met a couple of people and I started telling them that I'm writing, and one person told me about another person. And then I took a class and met some people in that class. And then I have a very good friend on the East Coast who's also writing. She's been published quite a few short stories. And she went to a class and she met some people, and through them I met some people. It's just like, you know, when you, I think when you put yourself out there and when you stop being so closed in, then you open doors for yourself and you meet the people that you want to meet. But I had the tendency before that, you know, like my writing is my secret thing, and I didn't tell people about it. It was, you'd think for a therapist, I would be a little bit, you know. But, you know, so the book that I just published, the one about methadone, it's actually, I started writing it about my clients, but then I turned the book and it's more about the therapist working with the clients. And the whole point of the book is to show that the therapist is just as impaired in her ways as the clients, because people think, you know, therapists, you got it all together. We're just as messed up as everybody else.
That makes sense. I mean, I can totally see that. That can be absolutely true. What has the feedback been like on this book?
So I have gotten some great feedback from reviewers, bloggers, reviewers. I'm astonished, you know, because, you know, that's the thing. The fear is that you put it out there and people are going to go, oh my God, this is horrible. But no, I've gotten some really excellent feedback. I'm really humbled by it and amazed, you know.
That's very cool. What about people just who've maybe experienced that or been part of a journey having to do with that? Have you had anybody reach out to you from that aspect yet?
No, I haven't yet. And perhaps it's because I haven't been able to reach that audience of people who are struggling with addiction.
Since I haven't read the book yet, do you feel like it's written in a way that it would help people that maybe are having those journeys?
You know, that wasn't exactly the intent, but in a subtle way, yes, because it's really showing you that we who are not struggling with addiction have similar struggles. So my protagonist struggles with not you know, fearing being vulnerable and trying to go through life without vulnerability, you know, like trying not staying away from love. And heroin addicts do the same thing. They mask their vulnerability with a substance.
Yeah.
So it's a parallel path, and I'm trying to show that there's a way of conquering that.
Oh, I think that's awesome.
Do you think
Thank
that when it does reach that audience, because as it spreads and, people start talking to friends about what it's about and things like that, do you think it would be, I mean, from working with addicts and things like that, do you think it's something that they would maybe like read and not say anything to anybody to like kind of seek some, I'm trying to think of the word, solace or something in it, like to know that they're not alone? Or do you think that they would just hear about it and not want to read it at all?
I would think solace is a great word that you used. Absolutely. I think the book will act that way, because I think it's very healing and it's very comforting to read a book about that you can see yourself in it, and it's all about hope. I mean, I start in the beginning of the, before the actual story, I put in Emily Dickinson's poem about hope. Hope is that thing with feathers, because the book is all about hope. And if you live your life in hopelessness, it's a very dark way to live your life. And so this book is really about hope, both for the protagonist with her struggles, and for the heroin addicts who have their struggles.
That's
And actually,
awesome.
yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
the book, sorry.
No, go ahead. Your podcast, go do it.
So the book actually takes place in New York City in the 1980s. And I set it there for two reasons. Number one, it's because that's when I worked in the methadone field in New York City. But also, more importantly, because it was at the time when the AIDS epidemic was hitting the IV drug user community.
Oh, wow.
And it's their reaction, which is not unlike what we're going through with COVID, the fear and the misinformation, and even the fear of how you can contract it, So I needed to set it in that time frame, but I didn't realize when I started writing it, it was before COVID. So I just realized that while I was writing it, that, oh gosh, yeah, so there's a lot of, it's really about hope, about enduring and conquering your demons.
That's
So
very
when you
good.
first finish it, were you like, I know as an author, like I was like actually surprised at myself that I was able to actually like finish a book, because writing is easy, but finishing what you're writing is really difficult. So were you proud of yourself for getting it done and ready to go?
Yes, I was, to be honest. Yes. I went to listen to this guy who was talking to a bunch of us writers, and he said, so many people want to write a book, and so many people plan to write a book, and so many people start to write a book, but there are fewer and fewer who actually finish. So if you finish the book, just feel good that you've completed something, even if you'll never publish it. The fact that you've started something and you finished makes you feel good. Yeah.
No, and that's completely true what you just said, because finishing is sometimes the hardest part for authors, especially they can get tied up in thinking they have, 10 million more things to do to get to that point, and then they never get there. So let's talk real quick on the self-publishing journey. Did you do any research or anything, or did you just throw it up on Amazon? How did you get there with your first book?
So the first book, I was taking a class, and someone came in to talk to us about self-publishing, and he gave us the lay of the land, more or less, and laid it out there. And he said, if you're going to self-publish, this I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago, and he said, Amazon is the least expensive and kind of the easiest way of total self-help. Then you said there's the hybrid publisher, there's this, there's that. And I didn't want to, honestly, hybrid was a little too expensive. So I went with Amazon without giving it too much thought. It's only when I was writing the second one that I really started researching the lay of the land for the hybrid publishers and other self-publishing venues out there. But I was lucky to send it. I said, well, let me just try to send the second one to, I didn't even want to start with looking for agents. So I said, well, let me just go to small publishers who accept unsolicited manuscripts. So I sent it out to about 10 publishers. And the first one, I can be a little, spontaneous. The first one has said, oh, we're interested, send us the manuscript. I did, and that's it. I went with that.
Wow, that's very,
That's
very
awesome.
lucky. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I don't know if beginner's luck or what, but it was really, it floored me when you send it out there and you want and you hope for it. And then when someone sends you we're interested, you go, really? Oh my God, here, take it.
Have you done a lot of social media? Have you found like now marketing your book? How's that going?
It's interesting. I mean, I've done a few podcasts and social media. It's all new for me, because I just started, and I'm kind of, what is it, behind the 8 ball?
Yeah.
Because I should have listened. People tell you, start social media months and months before you publish, and build up your platform and all of that. And I started, the month I got published, or 2 months, so I got published in mid-October.
Oh, wow. So
So
how's it been working with the social media and all that?
I mean, I'm really having fun with it.
Cool.
I started it thinking, oh my God, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then just got into it. And I said, there's not much fun in aging, except that as you age, you are less concerned with, what's the repercussion going to be? And what are people going to say? You just go with it. What's the worst that can happen? So I'm just having fun. I'm gotten a few podcast interviews. I'm having a few more. I'm just, having fun with it.
No, I think that's part of the exciting part, right? Is to have fun with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I doubt that it would have been fun would be the adjective to use when I was younger. I probably would have been just way too anxious with the whole process.
No, that makes sense. I think it's definitely different when you're approaching it the way you're approaching it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mike, we're getting near the end of this particular podcast. What advice would you give authors out there?
Wow. So my advice would be, first of all, to write. No matter what, you got to write. You actually have to, and be, be vigilant. Set the time, like every day, whatever it is, but you got to actually write. I made so many excuses, and I have time for coffee, and I have to do this, and I have to do everything except for actually write. So the first advice would be to write. And the second one would be to be kind of fearless. Just write what you want to write, and just go with it. Just be fearless about what you want to write. Write from the heart.
Very, very cool. Okay, so let's talk. It's the shameless self-promotion part. Let's talk about the name of your book and where to find it and where to find you.
Okay, so the name of the book, should I pick it up?
Please, go for it. Shameless self-promotion. That's the whole point, right?
Okay. I know. Can you see it? It's called Marika's Best Laid Plan.
Very cool. I
You
love
know
the
how
cover.
yes, and you know how best laid plans sometimes go awry. So, and it can be found on Amazon. It can be ordered from all bookstores, but Amazon would be the one that's the fastest and easiest, because other bookstores would have to order it themselves. And And you can find it on my website, which is judystanigar.com.
Very cool. Do you have a newsletter?
No, I don't. No, I haven't gotten into that yet.
Well, maybe by the time this podcast airs, you will have a newsletter. That would be a good
Okay.
goal to have, because that way people can follow your writing journey with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and on Facebook, and I do write a blog, but I'm not. It's only on my website. I don't have.
No, that's the best place for blogs, is
Yeah,
website.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's awesome. So you're on Facebook? Are you on Twitter or Instagram or any of those?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Did I miss anything?
Unless you're on TikTok, which
No.
would surprise me for you to tell me you're on TikTok. So
I've not gone on TikTok at this point in my life. No,
that's a lot of commitment. I'm just letting you know. And
I know.
very cool. Judy, it has been so fantastic having you on this podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host has been C.R. Rice. Our guest has been Judy Stanigar. And our sponsor, see, I almost forgot there. Our sponsor has been Skunk Brothers Spirits. I'm drinking their sweet apple pie. You can find them at skunkbrotherspirits.com, DWA10. And I just realized there's a cinnamon stick in this bottle, and it's the first time I realized that. So that says
That's
wonders
awesome.
about me. So anyway, check them out, DWA10, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.